I was
Yeah.
often told that you shouldn't love your therapist because they're supposed to be challenging you and helping you in some way, but also keeping your best interests in mind. So if they're pushing you to overcome things that in the longer term will be helpful for you to overcome, it's usually not very comfortable in that processing.
Yes. And that's the way in some ways with coaching as well. Now, I use a totally different technique and stuff. But if you're going to hire a coach, you're not hiring them to be the yes man. You're
Mm.
there, you're hiring a coach to ask questions and really push you in your growth and development as a leader, working on yourself, but as well as working with your team and those that surround you. And so, again, I ask very difficult, challenging questions in that executive leadership coaching process to help them better, look at their plan of action and where can they grow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. I am delighted to have Mark Berg with me today. Mark is a licensed professional counselor. He is the former director of the Employee Assistance Program at a large academic medical institution. He is a certified employee assistance professional and a certified executive leadership coach. And before we dive into our discussion today, Mark, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so very much for inviting me. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching and stuff.
Yeah,
We got to cover them all. We got to be diverse and stuff. So,
it's true.
hello.
It's true. But for the people who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, can you please share a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, I've been doing this for over 30 years now. So my training is in mental health. I am a licensed mental health professional that also does executive leadership coaching. I go around the country as well as here recently around the world in teaching on critical incident stress management. Just got back from Montreal, Canada, thanks to the folks up north for a great warm welcome and everything. I've gone south of the border as well. So do some contract work with aviation. I used to work with an airline and stuff. And so I have a specialized team that we deal with some pretty crazy traumatic experiences that folks may experience in the aviation world, as well as working with those in the medical background. So working with the executives, faculty members, researchers, doctors, and all those. So it's been, I have had a great journey in life thus far, and I still look forward to what the future may hold and where we may go from here.
One question I'll have you kind of go over. There's physicians, a lot of physicians, of course, this channel caters mostly to healthcare professionals who, when they hear EAP, some people aren't aware of what that is, who they serve, and are afraid that if I go to EAP within my own institution, that confidentiality is going to be compromised and it might hurt them in some way. Can you share a little bit more about EAP, the resources, and the risks of their confidentiality being compromised?
Right. The specialists that work in these areas are licensed mental health professionals. So we do have to adhere to confidentiality. We follow the standards of HIPAA. And so we don't disclose anything that people bring to us because one of the big questions is, all right, Mark, who are you going to talk to? Are you going to talk to my boss? Are you going to talk to leadership? No, I'm a lazy therapist. I don't do that
Mm.
anymore. But no, based on what we do in our code of ethics and legal aspects, we can't do that. But that's always, especially for those that are licensed as medical providers, aviation, even law enforcement and stuff. They have those questions. And the one thing about EAPs, if you're going to go see an EAP, we don't diagnose. Even though we're licensed mental health professionals, ours are normally short-term counseling, information referrals kind of systems, but we don't have to diagnose. If you go see a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, even a psychiatrist, in order for them to bill, they have to diagnose. And so that kind of one of those big separating aspects between an EAP and those that are in private practice or in group practices. But we adhere to confidentiality, HIPAA. Now, again, you list, the aspects. When do we break confidentiality? If you're if you're in a situation that you're looking at harming yourself and others, if there's a issue and problem with elderly abuse or child abuse, we have to disclose those under our license. And each state has their own licenses. I'm licensed in the state of Texas. And so we have to adhere to those requirements. But if somebody's going to harm themselves or others, I have no problem, making sure they stay safe,
Mm-hmm.
population stays safe, and people can get mad at me, and that's okay. I hope they have a long, happy, healthy hatred towards me. They're still going to be alive.
Yeah. I
That's
think
how I look at it, and I'm okay with that.
and that's important, right? I was
Yeah.
often told that you shouldn't love your therapist because they're supposed to be challenging you and helping you in some way, but also keeping your best interest in mind. So if they're pushing you to overcome things that in the longer term will be helpful for you to overcome, it's usually not very comfortable in that processing.
Yes. And that's the way in some ways with coaching as well. Now, I use a totally different technique and stuff. But if you're going to hire a coach, you're not hiring them to be the yes man.
Mm-hmm.
You're hiring a coach to ask questions and really push you in your growth and development as a leader, working on yourself, but as well as working with your team and those that surround you. And so, again, I ask very difficult, challenging questions in that executive leadership coaching process to help them better, look at their plan of action and where can they grow. And it's not always comfortable. And so for me, it's really important for them to get their money's worth. To, talk about, all right, what are you willing to commit to? What are you going to work towards during the time periods between we meet? And then we look at, all right, were you successful in, doing it? Were the outcomes successful or not? And again, I don't say they were failures. They're never a failure because we always learn. And sometimes people go, Mark, I didn't have a chance to do it. Okay, fine. So what was the hindrance? And again, it helps point out to people where are our distractions? Because it's
Yeah.
really easy to get distracted and lose that focus and concentration, even on the mental health side, because we don't prioritize ourselves,
Yeah.
or on the coaching side of, how do I grow? And yet I have all these distractions and demands.
Yeah.
Hey, that's where burnout comes from. It's not internal, it's our external sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love coaching's philosophy that we're not there to add more to your plate. We're there to take things away.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I love that you just brought up because in my mind, the question I really wanted to ask in what you saw, because when I first developed profound despair and thought it was just me, I wasn't privy on the fact that the systemic issues were creating this burden and moral injury and suffering on so many people. So that when I experienced it was 2014, 17, no one was talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, just generally speaking, we're always keeping confidentiality, but generally speaking, what were the themes that you see how the system really puts pressure on the individual?
Well, you look at the medical profession, we've got quotas of how many patients we have to see per day. Working with faculty members that, coming from a medical institution, they're called faculty members, but they're MDs, they're PhDs, and then you have those that are MD PhDs. They have way too much time on their hands. You know, but they're doing research. They're seeing patients. They have to see so many patients. We have our surgeons that do all these surgeries and everything, and they work incredible hours. Jillian, you wrote 3 days ago about, the hypocrisy of medicine.
Yep,
Yes, I
I
do
did.
read your blogs too and
I do.
stuff. So
Yes,
thank you very
I
much.
wanted to hear your opinion. I, of course, have lots of them.
No, it is a hypocrisy because, here we're getting ready to face another one because, you see more patients, they want you to see more patients to help out revenue and all that stuff. And then when you do leave the office and go home, what I hear from those that I've worked with, it's like, Mark, I go home, I have dinner with my family. I may spend an hour, 2 hours with my kids. And then I go to my office at home and I do my notes
Yeah.
in, electronic records. And then I'm working in there until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I repeat.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. A lot of hospitals now are wanting to engage and employ in AI.
Hmm.
Fantastic. In fact, I know one big one that's going, hey, we want to, instill AI to help out physicians do their chart notes. It's going to make it a lot simpler so they can see more patients.
Yep. And you know what? You and I talked about this because we were both livid about the reason why. And there are companies that help with charting with the goal of giving that clinician back their time. So they're not charting at
Right.
nighttime. And so let's speak to the C-suite people here, and say, where are they going wrong and how do they course correct?
Well, it's not as to where they're going wrong. It's kind of the mindset. Let's readjust our mind. I think using the technology we have available today is awesome. AI can be a very powerful tool to use in many, many, many different ways if it's used correctly. Um, Being able to utilize and help address issues, problems in the research realm, being able to help a physician correctly and appropriately chart and stuff, to give them back that time, but then give them that time for self care,
Hmm.
give them that time for development of themselves, but also their families, because again, in your blog, it's like physicians, any healthcare provider today, it doesn't matter if you're a nurse, PA, a doctor, we give and give and give, and yet we sacrifice so much of us, time wise and self care, as well as our family and our relationships. And so, using these tools, using AI to help out our medical providers, giving them some extra time back so they can invest it in themselves, in their families, not in more patients. That should be an operational thing. If you got the patient demand, bring on more people. I recognize that we have a shortage. That's one of the big challenges. So, but you got to find that balance. You can't just say, all right, we're going to give you this resource to help, in your charting and your notes and research and stuff. But then we're going to want you to see more patients,
Yeah.
or we're going to want you to do more. And again, it's a conflict. And that's where the systemic issues and problems of burnout come in. It's not that we can't take care of ourselves. It's like the demands, the
Mhm.
expectancies that are there is just outrageous.
Yeah. So those who are in the system, communication between different levels, such as being a physician or being part of the C-suite, the administration. Like when I was in the military, there were decisions made that were so far removed from the impact that they were having that there were communication gaps. And
Yes.
a lot of people aren't really aware of if their communication is effective or not. And how do I communicate effectively as a leader? What can we do? What's in our own agency?
Absolutely. So there's some skills and techniques that I try to help people with when it comes to communication. First and foremost, be quiet. Listen. Lots of people have great ideas and thoughts and stuff, or have opinions, and type A personalities. Aviation pilots, type A person. When they fly a plane, I want them to be perfect. If a surgeon's operating on me, I want him to be a type A person. I want him to be perfect. But in that case, then we don't always open ourselves up to other ideas, thoughts, and opinions. And so, as an executive leader, as any kind of leader, one of the big aspects is listening. And I tell people, practice this at home. If you're uncomfortable with it, practice it with your spouse, your significant other, your friend, your children. Sit back and listen, and do not come up with a question until they're totally done talking. In today's world, that's tough. And then the other aspect is ask clarifying questions. Start looking and go, all right, I hear what you're saying. I want to make sure not only am I hearing, am I understanding what you're meaning? And we forget that it's a lost art. And so being able to do that, where I listen, I ask clarifying questions, and I get in a dialogue and I don't interrupt. In today's world, everybody has an opinion. They always want to share. And so what happens? They talk over people.
Mm.
So some very, very basic aspects of communication, if we apply these with our teams, if we apply these to the folks that we supervise, great things can happen. A lot of the discoveries and innovations don't come from the top. It actually comes from the very bottom because they're observers, they're watching everything. And if we only give them the opportunity to speak up and we say, we have this problem, and then they go, well, have you thought about this?
Mm.
No, I didn't, because they're looking at the very bottom level and stuff. And we're looking at, 30,000 feet in the air. And yet, by giving them that opportunity to speak and talk, and we listen and take it in, one, it improves morale. Oh, if we have better morale, it
Mm.
also improves retention.
Mm-hmm.
We're not having to replace people, which saves any company, corporation in the world today money. Trying to hire and replace a physician is outrageous. And so it helps out with morale, it helps out with retention, and it helps out with the old fashioned idea of camaraderie. And that's where looking at some good coaching, I think every executive needs a coach.
Mm.
If Tiger Woods, who used to be one of the very best golfers in the world, had a coach, then why can't we? You look at whatever football team, can't say much. My wife loves Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Doesn't matter how good Patrick Mahomes are or the team, they have multiple coaches.
Yeah.
So when we think about, well, I'm too good for that, it's like, no, we all, during the tough times of my life, I've always sought out mentors and coaches to keep me on track.
Mm.
And so again, try to put what I talk about in practice myself. It's not easy. It's not comfortable being vulnerable.
Mm.
And yet, if we do that, and so in that communication realm, being vulnerable, being open, and just sitting and listening and engaging can have monumental impacts on your team, but also on bottom line and finances. And so everybody likes that, even the accountants.
Yeah. And I love that you said the type A individual. And so we're focusing on that because I know it well. I know it
Medical professionals,
well.
there's
I
certain
know it
professions
well.
that draw that out.
Yes.
MDs, again,
Yeah.
not all of them, but a vast majority of them are type A personalities. Airline pilots are type A personalities. Again, not all, but again, they're very, very focused perfectionists. They're regimented in their thinking. Police officers are still the same
Mm.
way. So there's certain occupations that really, really need that kind of personality to look at the success of what they're doing.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak from my type A personality brain here and where it hindered me and where coaching has impacted. Just to give an idea, I'd love to hear more about your experience with where people start and then how coaching improves their trajectory into being a better listener. For me, in the beginning, we're problem solvers. You give me a
Mm.
problem, I want to solve it. So I'm going to be thinking out loud about potential solutions. And in coaching, as a coach, I'm not there to solve your problems, right? So that like shift of listen, 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 do not propose a solution was so uncomfortable in the beginning because I was like wheels spinning about, should I recommend? Ooh, no, you can't recommend any of that or lead them to any of what you believe is true. It's like, wow, I have to abandon. So I learned like, oh, that's where that training gets in the way. And also in surgery, like we get pimped, you get asked questions. If you don't know it, then it's you shame, guilt spiral. So when we are asked a question, we want to know it. So we interject and don't leave space. Because if we leave space, it looks like we don't know it. So let's just like let that go. And so what else am I missing?
You're absolutely right. It's an occupational hazard. you think about in undergrad programs, we're there to problem solve, focus, and deal with that. When you go, at least I haven't been to medical school, but talking with a lot of doctors and stuff, looking at, all right, what did you learn in medical school? Well, I learned that I have to have all the answers. I have to be prepped and ready to go for, like you said, I'm going to get all these questions in. I'm going to look bad if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's some of those training aspects that put us kind of at that disadvantage of listening and everything and being able to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Giving ourselves permission to understand. My saying, and I, again, I'm crazy and I do wild, crazy stuff. But one of the things I tell people all the time is I've studied a lot in school. I got lots of other people and like you and stuff. But here's my thing. The more I learn and the more I know, I don't know.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Because again, it opens up the world to me that, oh, wow, I've learned this, but it creates so many other questions.
Yes. Mm.
And again, I am one that love to learn. I want every day, my goal is to learn something new. That's not hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, understand that. So, as physicians, as executives, when people are looking for you, for having all the answers and having the solutions and guiding and directing, it's amazing if we can just stop and sit and listen. We can guide and lead anything. We don't even have to really have the expertise in that area. And the great example for me, way back when, I'm going to date myself, is Lee Iacocca. If people remember Lee Iacocca, he saved Chrysler a long time ago. And he came into the auto industry and he knew nothing about the auto industry. He was an executive in the biking industry, in bicycles. And yet he came in and he was a fantastic leader because he could listen. He could problem solve. Not that he had all the answers, but he assembled teams around him that together they worked together to address the challenges at hand. And again, that's where team development, team dynamics really, really pays off. And as you said, it all starts with communication. How well do you actively listen? It's a lost art because so many people want to problem solve
Mm-hmm.
and share. Well, this is the way I think it should be done. Let's do it this way. When
Mm-hmm.
I worked with my team, I tried, and again, I wasn't perfect, but I tried to make sure they had the opportunity to speak first. And the rationale and reason is that if I spoke up and said, this is what my thought is, this is how I think we should address it, what are they going to do? They're going to jump on the bandwagon and go,
Yep.
you're the leader, we're going to follow you. You're shaking your head. You know how that
Yes.
works. And
Yes.
so being as a leader, speaking last, we should be open to ideas. And of course, I had one fantastic lady that she would put me on the spot going, Mark, you've heard all this, you're saying this, but what was your thought?
Yeah.
It's like you guys came up with a fantastic idea, concept. Let's run with it. And it may be exactly what I had thought already. And so I didn't have to share it. Or I may be better than what I thought.
Yeah.
And again, it's that team approach as if we can get a really, really good idea and we have buy-in. If we have buy-in from the team, then they're going to make it successful.
I love Adam Grant and his
Yes.
Think Again. He had a post and he talks about having, like, if you have a question, have everyone independently answer it silently. I'm introverted. I like to think a lot and then come. And sometimes introverts get lost at the table or they have to speak and they get, what Adam Grant said was like, have the question, have everyone silently think about what their solutions are, and then propose. Because just like you highlighted, the moment someone says something, someone may not propose because they're measuring their recommendation, right? But it's this culmination of ideas that are better than that one alone.
Yes.
And usually the people in leadership positions that speak loudly, their actions might get heard, and there tends to be a situation often where people don't feel, I don't know if safe is the right word. There's a lot of different uses that are replacing psychological safety with having brave spaces. Brene Brown spoke to the institution that I was at, and she said she no longer uses safe spaces, or psychological safety. She prefers brave spaces because we can't guarantee someone's safe. But having a space where people really feel like they can provide their opinion, and for people who have maybe had a past where they weren't in an environment where their opinion was seen, valued, or
Mhm.
respected, it might take them a while. And as a leader, to be able to identify this person isn't speaking up and have curiosity from a non-judgmental place.
Mhm.
If I were a leader and I am noticing that people aren't speaking up, what would you suggest to that leader?
Encouragement. Again, I go back to the culture, both the culture that you're in, but the culture they came from.
Yeah.
And so getting a good understanding of each individual on your team as an executive leader, understanding where they have come from because their past is going to influence how they deal with today and where they kind of move forward. But culture, our culture today, if we can develop a culture of safety, if we can develop that brave space and they can feel the aspect of being vulnerable, they're
Mm,
okay with being vulnerable, and it's encouraged, and they see that, then they're more likely to do that. And so it may take some one-on-ones, it may take some encouragement and some experimentation,
yeah.
because somebody that came from a very negative, degrading background, in some ways, I hate to say it, again, I hear that's the way medical schools used to be,
Yeah.
although they've changed. They're now more positive and developing. But again, I learned that from the past. And so, how do I trust today where I'm at in this culture?
Mm-hmm.
So, leaders, MDs, even PAs, nurses, executives, aviation, executive stuff. Again, we can develop this culture, and so it's going to take time. It's going to take some effort. It's not going to be easy. All right. It is simple, but it's not easy. And so as a leader, are you willing to be vulnerable to be able to say, all right, I didn't come up with the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who comes up with the best idea as long as it's productive and people are safe and secure in sharing their ideas, and we can move forward with the very best that we can offer our clients, our patients, or whoever our stakeholders.
I love the messages you highlighted here. And especially, I've been doing a lot of new mindfulness. It was resistant because it gets thrown at our face a lot in medicine to do it. And I was like, heck no, but I finally did, and it was helpful.
Can you tell
So,
I've been in medicine too long? Sorry.
yeah, no, yeah. I'm just thinking, right? Because the things that we
Yeah.
thought, the more you know, the more you don't know. And that having that beginner's mindset, reducing that need to have your ego stroked, right? And so like when the person maybe heard themselves and what I was saying about and what you just conveyed about medicine, we were groomed to say like you better know the answer or else you're going to get reamed out. You're going from that place where you've got some unlearning to do and you enter into a coaching engagement. Can you kind of showcase what it looks like for that individual? What should they expect during coaching?
Depends on who the coach is. Me, I use a lot of humor. For me, it helps relax, and it helps the tension, but it also helps us focus on what's important here. So, coaching, a coach is supposed to ask a lot of questions. We don't have all the answers because we're not there with you. I can coach somebody that I have no experience with whatsoever or their occupation, but I'm going to have them help teach me what their day's like, what their experience is. And then I'm going to ask questions to help them develop a plan of action, to help them look at, all right, here are possibilities you can try that maybe you haven't tried before. I mean, I'm going to explore what worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, what can we tweak today. And again, a golf coach does that. They look at it, they have you show the swing all the time, and then they start tweaking little things. and making suggestions. They never tell you what to do.
Mm.
I'm a good clinician. I know if I tell you what to do and it goes bad, guess who they're going to blame? Me. So a coach is there to help look and explore options and possibilities, open up new ideas and thought patterns to, achieve the goal. And I like setting goals at the very beginning. I like to have a great big goal. And then each time we meet, we have smaller goals, bite size. How are you going to eat that elephant? One bite at a time.
Mm. Yeah.
And so we have those that are measurable that we can look at. All right, are we meeting the goal? Are we succeeding? Or do we need to tweak here and there? And so, if you have somebody that, kind of gives you, all the answers and stuff, then it's not coaching.
Yeah.
And so for me, coaching is listening, understanding to the very best of my ability, and asking a lot of questions to spur along their thoughts. The good coaches aren't cheap. But here's the thing, you get what you pay for sometimes too. And that when you have a good coach that's going to help walk along that journey, it can be very, very, very beneficial and productive. And again, like I said, on the business stance of the accountants and stuff, it can save them a lot of money in the long run by investing a little bit today and saving potentially millions of dollars later on. Because in order to replace a physician, especially a very specialized physician, it's outrageous to hire or recruit, hire, train, and get that person up to speed. And yet it's like, all right, where do you want to invest that energy, effort, and money, on the forefront or on the backside? And in today's world, I think, again, it shows the aspect of caring and concern. If we can show that we want people to develop today, it's going to help them in many, many aspects tomorrow and later in the future. Did that answer your question about coaching?
It did answer my question about coaching. And because you wear both hats, can you briefly share the difference between, if I'm an individual wondering, should I go to counseling? Should I go to coaching? Should I do both? How would you advise?
Depends. When you look at mental health, if somebody comes into me, I'm still actively involved. And sometimes I do make suggestions of looking at things, looking at options, and it may be a little bit more guided. The aspect is, I'm not for, again, depending on their therapeutic approaches, I look at learning from the past. So do I dwell on the past? No, but I look at the past and kind of what leads you up to where you are today, who you are today. With coaching, it's more, all right, some of the similarities, but it's all questions.
Yeah.
It's not the necessarily guiding. It's not, the other aspect with therapy, a lot of times, they're looking at people that have fallen apart, or we've got to rebuild them. No. In coaching, it's like, well, you're here. Let's make you stronger. Let's look at, again, the weakest links, the weakest aspects. And again, you set the goals. You set the priorities of what you want, and that's what we're going to focus on. And so there are some similarities in that aspect. And I got news. When I do coaching, do I bring some of my aspects of the mental health? Yes. I have no problem coming up with questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's an occupational hazard for me. That it just kind of flows. Other people go, I don't know where to lead the conversation. It's like, just listen. And so you have those different aspects. Again, when we look at the therapy aspect, then again, we're looking at mental health. Coaching, it can come from a wide variety of different things that we're looking at. Can it be wellness? Yes, absolutely. But again, like we said, communication, it can be professionalism, working with doctors. And, a lot of times what really catches a doctor is when I ask, all right, where did you learn this behavior?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my parent was an MD. I learned it from them. I learned these characters. I learned it in medical school. Again, the belittling, the disengagement, the kind of abusive some communication aspects sometimes. Not for all, but again, when we start looking at where did you learn this habit, this behavior and stuff, it's like, oh my gosh. So again, we focus in the past, but we look at where are we at, and then how do you change moving forward? Because you are in power and control. I'm in the empowerment process. I'm here to empower you. And that's through question and answers.
I love it. It's putting a stop to that generational trauma. I think when it comes to learning, where did I observe that? How did it serve me in the past? How is it no longer serving me?
And it takes it away from being a victim.
Mm.
You're a survivor. You've survived all this. You have enormous talents, you have enormous strength. Now let's harness that and move forward.
Yeah, and the value of both from coaching and counseling, where a lot of that mindset shifting occurs, where it could be instant relief. I think we've spent multiple years learning one thought, one behavior, and it may take longer to retrain, but just that first step of awareness, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
it doesn't actually have to be that way. And it doesn't go poof, right? And that's why the coaching engagements aren't one and done. It's a longer
right.
term relationship. And I was curious, you gave so many great takeaways. And I would love for you, we really highlighted the importance of listening, communication, but I will have you say, what would be your takeaways from this conversation?
Everybody's different. Everybody comes with their backgrounds, their experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, or as the movie said, the good, bad, and the ugly. We all come from those areas. And the question is, for me, am I at a position I can be vulnerable with me to look at me and go, all right, this is, I need to grow. How do I do that? And it doesn't matter if it's mental health or if it's executive leadership coaching or taking some training and education classes. How am I going to make myself better tomorrow than I am today? A lot of ways we have to look at ourselves and go, what am I willing to do? What steps am I willing to take? And for me, that's my personal journey every day. I supervise young LPC assistants. And when I start off, I said, look, I'm not an expert. I may know a lot. This head is not, that's why I have no hair. I may know a lot, but I tell you, I don't know everything. And this is going to be a fantastic journey for the next couple of years to get your license, but we're going to do it together. Are you, those that are listening, willing to put yourself in that learning position and be vulnerable and understand that, again, you may have a lot. Background may impact how we interact with folks, good, bad, or indifferent. We can always change. And I'm always looking at self improvement. I'm always looking at self care. I love the wellness wheel, all the different aspects of the wellness, because that impacts us. Mental health impacts our physical well being, our financial well being, our spiritual well being, all the different aspects there, and how we do things. And again, executive coaching kind of goes along that realm as well. And again, there's not the stigma,
Yeah.
in the medical professions, or in some professions, oh, I don't want to see a therapist and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll have somebody goes, hey, Mark, I understand you're a coach. Can you coach me on this? I need some help. And so when we start exploring, then it has some wellness aspects to it.
Yeah. It is interesting, right? Things are shifting. I do understand why people would be hesitant.
People are more apt. I mean, dealing with our executive leadership team, many of them, I think, were much more open to working with me as a coach, even though they knew my background. I had some
Yeah.
people that would reach out specifically because of my background, but I want the coaching. Don't do that mental health stuff. And, it's like, all right, fine, I won't.
Isn't it fascinating? And I hope it will change and shift over time. And also, I want to make sure people know that I highly advocate, no matter what, if you risk your career to save your life, I am a huge proponent of that. Me going to seek mental health was not something that I regret doing. It's something that I now voice, I am a huge advocate to do because some people are avoiding it at risk of their life in order to save their career. And we think that's normal in our brain at times. I sure did. I thought, oh, I'll risk my life to save my career. And so
And
let's
trained
reiterate.
coaches will refer if need be.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Again, I come from the mental health side. There are some phenomenal coaches that are on the business side. And again, they come from a different perspective, and that's wonderful and great. But if they are really truly trained in the coaching aspect, I mean, there's a couple of different groups. I belong to the International Coaching Federation. Fantastic, you know. But they also said that there are times when we really do need to refer for the mental health approach and stuff. And so knowing, understanding that, and knowing our limitations. And that
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
very, very special for coaching. I don't care where you start as long as you start. We got to put one foot in front of the other. And so if you're going, I don't know where to start, you can start with an executive coach.
Yeah.
You can start with a mental health professional. You can start with your EAP. If you have questions, contact me. I'll be glad to help guide you and ask them my dumb questions and stuff. But again, reach out and you start, because again, if we do that, then we're making progress. We're moving. We're not sitting still.
And I love that you said that because my next question for you is where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. I'm in Houston, so if you do a search for Mark Berg, I am a clinician here in Houston. If you want to email me, it's a very simple thing. It's mberglpc@gmail.com. And I've had that forever and ever and ever. So if you have any questions, yeah, shoot me an email. I try to respond within 12 to 24 hours. And so I'll be glad to answer whatever questions, or, if you want to set up a time to chat and stuff, I'll be glad to do that as well.
Well, thank you, Mark. It was delightful to have you here sharing your wisdom, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So my challenge for everybody is do something today to make tomorrow better for you. And
Mm,
sometimes that's hard to do because some of us may be in not so good places today. And so again, putting forth the effort, putting forth the commitment, being vulnerable just to do one thing that can impact and make tomorrow better. If we do that day in and day out as we move forward, we don't know what a month from today is going to look like. It could be so much different.
that's
That's my
beautiful.
challenge. I always give challenges.
I love it. And I would love to hear the audience intentions with that down below so then you can circle back and see how your intention went and how we can best support you and do the same tomorrow.